After having grown up in Christianity, having been exposed, learned, and agreed with Christian theology regarding the incarnation of the Messiah, the Almighty, becoming a man as Christians claim, and knowing their arguments, believing their arguments, and then unconvincing myself, not on purpose, but as a result of many years of studying, that this is true. Completely unconvinced now that this is true. Now, as a result, having known the methods of coming to this conclusion in the minds of Christians that the Messiah will be the Almighty, I have a few questions regarding simple passages throughout the Bible that I think could very similarly prove other things as being the Almighty become man, but some other man or some other object, if Christians were to apply their methods of understanding consistently. So, why don't Christians worship the altar, which is called God, in Genesis chapter 33, verse 20? Why don't they worship the city, which is called the Lord our righteousness, in Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 16? Or the man whose name is Yahu, which means he is Yah, the Lord? Or the man who is called Ish Ho Elohim, which literally in Hebrew means the man, the God. Of course, whenever we're looking at Hebrew, we must always keep in mind that the grammar of Hebrew and sentence structure is not the same as in English. Why don't Christians worship the man who is named Yah, the God of the deity? That's Joel. Why don't Christians worship any of the other people who carry the name Jesus or Yeshua, such as can be found in the book of Ezra, where the man whose name literally means my father Yah, my father the Lord, such as in 2 Chronicles chapter 13, or any people found today who carry similar names, such as Emmanuel, or Sar Shalom, which means Prince of Peace, or people who carry the name Aviad, which literally is translated as Father of Eternity. Why don't they worship the angel Michael, Michael? Because if they use the same method of translating Emmanuel to mean God who is with us, then Michael literally means he who is as God. Continuing. Why don't Christians worship the burning bush? Why don't Christians worship the people of Israel? As there are many verses that seem to indicate that this is the proper method, such as Isaiah chapter 44, verse 14. Again, only if we come to these verses with the same method of understanding which is used by Christians to come to the understanding that the Messiah will be the Almighty come in the form of flesh. Why don't Christians worship a sixtity instead of a trinity? Because while they like to use the proof or the saying God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob as a proof for the Trinity, they should have in mind that each time when the word God appears in this phrase, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, that each time it's in plural. So that equals out at least to 6 different deities. Why don't they worship a septity instead of a trinity? After all, there are 7 spirits of God that appear in Revelation chapter 3, verse 1 and elsewhere. The justifications which Christians use for worshiping the man Jesus would justify worshiping these as well, if applied consistently. And if the Almighty transforms himself into a man, why not into a building, into a city, an altar, into a rock or a sun? After all of these, even rock and sun, are used as metaphorical terms applied to the Creator. But who says they're metaphor? There's no difference between the Almighty becoming a man and the Almighty becoming a rock. And if that were to happen, if the Almighty were to change to be some sort of transformer, then what a big mistake it would be if the rock he transformed into happened to be very similar in appearance to a rock that is not him, and one could then, by great error, worship the one that is not him instead of the rock that is him. Hasbe shalom, that this should even be considered a possibility. But we see that such is a possibility in this line of thinking, because even in the New Testament we see that the apostles, when they first saw Jesus after his presumed resurrection, at first mistook him for the gardener. Why don't Jews historically worship Jesus as God? For the same reason that Christians don't worship any of these as God. Blessed is he above all our misconceptions.